When the first signal flickered on the screen, Captain Aria Tremont had never imagined humanity would cause such enormous trouble. In an instant, all her beliefs about the infinite universe collapsed as the welcoming mathematical figures transformed into a final message. "We're shooting back now." 2 seconds later, an explosion from a mine-laden asteroid shook the UES Pioneer Observatory. The universe was no longer a peaceful realm. It was feeling the angry eyes of the Calarian Empire. The year was 2476, and humanity had expanded to 42 star systems, building the Planetary Federation with Earth at its center. Meanwhile, at the outer rim, the Calarian Empire, a civilization that had conquered hundreds of species, was silently observing. Captain Aria Tremont, 36, commanded the survey ship UES Pioneer. Her current mission: investigate a strange signal in the Kepler 442 system. The Pioneer hovered in orbit around Kepler 442, 20,000 kilometers above its surface. Soon, the expedition would expand to other colonies: Haven's Rest, Kepler Station, New Terra, and eventually back to Earth. Aria was a brave captain who always maintained her rationality. She had a thirst for discovering knowledge for humanity. Her crew included Commander Leo Moro, the communications officer who first detected the strange mathematical signal; Dr. Meera Patel, the scientific consultant sent to identify the origin of the signal; and Lieutenant Alan Quill, the chief engineer responsible for defense systems. As the Pioneer orbited Kepler 442, the crew faced challenges from cosmic distances, space magnetic storms, and asteroid risks. The ship's sensor systems continuously reported errors. Extraterrestrial materials were causing interference. "Captain, I'm picking up another sequence," Commander Leo announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "It's structured, definitely not random." Aria floated to the communication station, her eyes fixed on the scrolling data. "What do you make of it, Commander?" "It's mathematical, Captain. Prime numbers, followed by what appears to be a response formula." Leo's brow furrowed as she studied the patterns. "I've never seen anything like this." Dr. Meera Patel joined them. Her scientific curiosity piqued. "Those sequences, they're beyond coincidental. This is first contact protocol material." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had expanded across dozens of star systems, but never had they encountered another intelligent species. The moment was historic, yet Aria felt an inexplicable unease. "Lieutenant Quill, run a full diagnostic on our defense systems," Aria ordered, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "Commander Leo, prepare a simple response, just basic mathematics to indicate we understand." As the crew worked, Aria gazed through the observation window at the swirling atmosphere of Kepler 442's fourth planet. Somewhere down there, something was reaching out. But was it extending a hand in friendship, or something else entirely? "Response ready, Captain," Leo reported. Aria hesitated only briefly. "Send it." The simple sequence of prime numbers flashed into the void. Minutes passed in tense silence. "Captain," Lieutenant Quill shouted suddenly, "defense systems are activating without authorization." Aria spun toward the tactical display. "Override it!" "I can't!" Quill's fingers flew across his console. "Something's locked us out of our own systems." Dr. Patel leaned over the science station, her face pale. "The signal. It contains a self-replicating pattern. It's observing our systems, learning." Before Aria could respond, alarm klaxons blared throughout the ship. Red emergency lights bathed the bridge in an ominous glow. "What's happening?" Aria demanded. "Our defense systems are targeting our own engines," Quill reported, his voice tight with tension. "We're being disabled from within." Leo's console flashed with a new message. She stared at it, her face draining of color. "Captain, we're receiving a new transmission. It just says, Neutralize. Arya felt ice form in her veins. What had begun as scientific curiosity had transformed into something far more dangerous. Humanity's first contact was not a peaceful exchange of knowledge. It was the beginning of war. "All hands to battle stations," Arya ordered, her voice sharp with urgency. "We need to break free and warn Earth. Whatever's down there doesn't want to talk. It wants us gone." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Arya stared at the haunting message on the screen. Their peaceful mission of exploration had suddenly become humanity's first desperate fight for survival against a force they didn't yet understand. And deep in her gut, Arya knew this was only the beginning. "Escape trajectory, now!" Arya commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge. "We need to get back to Earth immediately." The UES Pioneer shuddered as its engines strained against the invisible grip of the compromised systems. Lieutenant Quill worked frantically at his station, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "I can't regain full control, Captain," Quill shouted over the blaring alarms. "Whatever infected our systems is blocking my access to the FTL drive." "Keep trying," Arya ordered. "Commander Leo, launch the electronic decoys. Let's create enough confusion to break free." Leo's fingers flew across her console. "Deploying decoys now, Captain." A dozen small probes ejected from the Pioneer, each broadcasting signals identical to the ship's own signature. As they scattered into the surrounding space, the Pioneer's compromised defense systems momentarily hesitated, unable to determine which target to focus on. "There's our window," Arya said, her voice tight with concentration. "Full thrust on conventional engines. Lieutenant Quill, the moment you regain any control of the FTL, you punch it, no matter what." The Pioneer lurched forward, accelerating away from Kepler 442. Behind them, something was rising from the planet's surface. Something massive. "Captain," Dr. Patel said quietly, her eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. "I've analyzed the signal pattern. It's not just communication. It's a tactical code. We've just encountered the vanguard of the Galactic Empire." Arya's blood ran cold. "How do you know that name?" "The mathematical sequence contained embedded identifiers," Dr. Patel explained. "Based on ancient linguistic patterns we've recovered from ruins in the Arcturus sector. The Galarians are conquerors. They've subjugated hundreds of species across the galaxy." A new alarm sounded as Quill shouted in triumph. "FTL control restored, Captain!" "Get us out of here, maximum speed," Arya ordered. "Set course for Earth. We need to warn the Planetary Federation immediately." As the Pioneer's FTL drive engaged, the stars around them stretched into brilliant streaks. They had escaped, but Arya knew they were carrying a terrible message back to Earth. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their first encounter was with an enemy who saw them as nothing more than another conquest. 6 light hours from Earth. The Pioneer raced through the void, carrying its dire warning. In the command center of New Avalon, Earth's capital, the Planetary Defense Committee convened an emergency session upon receiving the Pioneer's distress call. Admiral Karen White, commander of the Federation Peacekeeping Force, stood at the head of the table, her face grim as she addressed the assembled leaders. "Captain Tremont's report is clear," she stated, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The Galactic Empire has identified us, and their first action was hostile. Intelligence suggests they have already dispatched a fleet toward our outer colonies." Defense Secretary Ryan Clark leaned forward, his expression troubled. "What are our chances in a direct military confrontation?" Admiral White's jaw tightened. "With our current military capabilities, minimal. The Galarians possess technology far beyond our own. Their ships outnumber ours by at least 20 to 1. Then perhaps we should consider diplomatic options," Clark suggested. "A peaceful surrender might minimize casualties." "Surrender?" Captain Arya Tremont, newly arrived from the Pioneer, stepped forward. "Secretary Clark, I've seen their technology firsthand. They didn't attempt communication. They attacked without provocation. This isn't an enemy interested in negotiation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity faced an existential threat unlike anything in its history. Dr. Laura Santos, director of the Planetary Civilian Science Academy, cleared her throat. There might be another option. We may lack military parity, but we have something the Calarians don't expect. Our civilian infrastructure. Explain, Admiral White prompted. Dr. Santos activated a holographic display showing mining operations, civilian transports, and industrial facilities across human space. I propose the Citizen Conversion Plan. We transform our mining equipment, civilian ships, and industrial tools into weapons. Every citizen becomes a potential resistance fighter. You're talking about militarizing our entire civilization, Clark objected. I'm talking about survival, Dr. Santos countered. If we can't match their military strength, we use what we do have, ingenuity and the will to resist. Arya stepped forward, her voice resonating with conviction. On Pioneer, we witnessed how quickly the Calarians can neutralize conventional defenses, but they've never encountered humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when pushed to the edge. Admiral White studied the proposed plans, her military mind calculating possibilities. Dr. Santos, how quickly can we implement this conversion? With global coordination, we could have the first wave ready within weeks, Santos replied. Every mining laser becomes a weapon, every transport a potential bomb. We turn the very tools of our civilization into instruments of resistance. The Admiral nodded slowly. It's unprecedented, but so is the threat we face. She turned to the committee. I recommend we immediately initiate the Citizen Conversion Protocol and begin evacuations of our most vulnerable colonies. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the message spread throughout human space. Prepare for war. At New Terra, the agricultural colony, farmers abandoned their fields to construct underground bunkers. On Haven's Rest, miners converted excavation equipment into makeshift weapons. At Kepler Station, industrial workers transformed container ships into explosive traps. As Arya prepared to return to space with urgent orders for the outer colonies, she paused before the observatory window, gazing at the stars that had once represented humanity's greatest adventure. Now, those same stars harbored an approaching storm. We never wanted this war, she whispered to herself. But we will not surrender our freedom without a fight. Across human space, the grim work of preparation began. Civilian volunteers trained alongside military personnel. Mining facilities operated around the clock, no longer extracting resources, but crafting the tools of resistance. Children were evacuated to the deepest shelters while their parents prepared for the coming storm. On New Terra, an acid rainstorm delayed the fortification efforts, forcing the farm colony crew to abandon their shelters as the defensive bunkers flooded. Despite the setback, they worked through the harsh conditions, determined to be ready. In the crystal palace of the Calarian homeworld, Empress Vexai glided across the floor, her crystalline robes shimmering with each movement. She received the report of the human encounter with cold interest. They resist? She asked, her voice like ice cracking. They attempt to, Your Majesty, the messenger replied. Our advanced scouts report unusual activity across their territory. They appear to be preparing. A smile curved the Empress's lips. How quaint. Send the first fleet to Haven's Rest. Let us demonstrate the futility of their resistance. As the messenger departed, Empress Vexai turned her gaze to the galactic map, where the tiny region of human space was highlighted. Soon, it would bear the Calarian banner, like countless realms before it. Such a shame, she murmured. They might have made useful servants had they chosen submission. 50 Calarian warships approached Haven's Rest, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of the system's sun. Against them stood 5 small human military vessels and 43 converted civilian ships. Captain Tony Rodriguez, a former Earth military officer now commanding Haven's Rest's defense, addressed his makeshift fleet from the bridge of the UES Guardian. "I won't lie to you," he said, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Most of us won't survive this day, but every minute we hold them here is another minute for Earth to prepare. Every Calarian ship we damage weakens them for the battles to come." The civilian pilots, former miners, transport operators, and station personnel listened in solemn silence. They had volunteered knowing this was likely a one-way mission. "They expect us to flee or surrender," Rodriguez continued. "Instead, we're going to show them that humans don't yield. We fight. For our families, for our future, for every human who will come after us." As the Calarian fleet entered the system, they encountered the first of humanity's desperate innovations, a field of asteroids, each rigged with mining explosives. The leading Calarian vessels triggered the traps, and 5 ships erupted in spectacular explosions. General Moruk, commanding the Calarian fleet, observed the unexpected resistance with surprise. "Primitive, but effective," he noted to his second-in-command. "These humans are more resourceful than reported." The battle for Haven's Rest unfolded with desperate intensity. The civilian ships, loaded with explosives, launched themselves at the Calarian vessels in suicide runs. Each impact took a toll on the invaders, the explosions piercing shields, calibrated for energy weapons rather than physical impacts. The UES Guardian, under Rodriguez's command, targeted the Calarian flagship, executing a daring attack run that damaged the enemy's navigation systems. For a moment, it seemed the humans might achieve the impossible. But the technological superiority of the Calarians ultimately prevailed. One by one, the human ships were destroyed or disabled. Haven's Rest fell. Yet the victory had cost the Calarians 12 ships, a loss rate unprecedented in their conquests. General Moruk stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the devastation. For the first time in his long career, he felt a flicker of doubt. These humans fought with a ferocity he had never encountered before. They sacrificed themselves willingly, turning their own deaths into weapons. "Secure the colony," he ordered, "and inform the Empress. This conquest may require additional resources." At Kepler Station, Commander Lisa Brady organized the industrial station's defense. Under her direction, the station's ore processing equipment had been converted into massive railguns, capable of launching metal projectiles at a fraction of light speed. "The physics is simple," she explained to her team of engineers. "At these velocities, even their advanced shields can't fully compensate for the kinetic energy. We might not have their technology, but we have mass and acceleration on our side." Chief Engineer Danny Clark and Operations Officer Steve Miller oversaw the railgun and the preparation of container bombs, cargo containers packed with industrial explosives. As the Calarian fleet approached, the station's workers took their positions, many of them civilians with minimal combat training but unwavering resolve. "They don't think we can hurt them," Brady told her people. "Let's prove them wrong." When the Calarian attack began, Kepler Station unleashed its makeshift arsenal. The railguns fired salvos of metal fragments, the hypervelocity impacts overwhelming the Calarian shields through sheer kinetic force. Container bombs were launched directly at the enemy fleet, their detonations creating clouds of debris that further complicated the Calarians' advance. For 6 hours, the station held, its improvised weapons claiming 8 Calarian vessels. But as with Haven's Rest, superior technology eventually prevailed. The station's defenses were systematically targeted and disabled. In a last, desperate act, Lisa Brady directed a railgun strike at a Calarian warship's weapons bay, triggering a catastrophic explosion that damaged several enemy vessels, but also collapsed part of the station, sacrificing her anti-projectile team. As Kepler Station fell, the Calarians found themselves facing an uncomfortable reality. These humans, with their primitive technology and desperate tactics, had inflicted significant losses. What should have been a routine conquest was becoming a costly campaign. News of the resistance at Haven's Rest and Kepler Station spread throughout human space. Though both outposts had fallen, their defiance ignited a fierce determination. If a handful of civilians with converted mining equipment could inflict such damage, perhaps humanity stood a chance after all. On Earth, the preparations intensified. Admiral Karen White coordinated with Dr. Laura Santos to implement the Citizen Conversion Protocol on a global scale. Every available resource was directed toward defense. The moon was transformed into a fortress, with massive railguns, dubbed moon guns, constructed on its surface, capable of launching projectiles with devastating force. 300 Calarian warships entered the Sol system, the largest invasion force in the Empire's history. Against them, Earth mustered 18 warships and 47 converted civilian vessels reconfigured as kamikaze vessels. The orbital defense system, consisting of 12 stations, stood ready alongside the moon guns. As the Calarian fleet approached, Admiral White addressed the combined forces from her underground command center. "Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every human being, born and unborn," she declared. "We may be outmatched in technology and numbers, but we will not be outmatched in courage and determination. Earth has always been our home, our birthright. Today, we defend that right with everything we have." The battle began with Phase 1, Break the Vanguard. Civilian ships hidden in the asteroid belt suddenly accelerated toward the Calarian fleet, their suicide runs claiming 15 enemy vessels in the first exchange. Phase 2, Fighter Ruckus, saw 12 small, agile fighters slip past the Calarian defenses to target their command ships. The nimble craft, piloted by Earth's best, executed precision strikes that disrupted 4 Calarian command groups before being destroyed. Phase 3, Defense Station Duel, became a desperate struggle as the Calarians targeted the moon guns. Recognizing their threat, 9 of the 12 stations were destroyed, but not before they had exacted a heavy toll on the invaders. In retaliation, the Calarians unleashed concentrated firepower on Earth's major cities, raining destruction from orbit. Captain Alex Turner led the UES Defiance in Phase 4, Omega Protocol. The remaining military vessels launched a coordinated attack, tearing into the Calarian formation. Explosions illuminated Earth's sky as ships from both sides were destroyed, alarm sirens wailing across the planet's surface. Turner guided his ship toward the Calarian command vessel, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. "For Earth," he whispered as he ordered the final attack run. The Defiance crashed into the Calarian flagship, its destruction taking several enemy vessels with it. From her underground command center, Admiral White watched the battle unfold with grim determination. "Keep firing," she ordered as reports of casualties flooded in. "Every shot, every sacrifice brings us closer to survival." Colonel Mike Turner, Alex's brother, coordinated ground forces as they prepared for the possibility of a land invasion. Cities lay in ruins, but resistance cells operated from underground bunkers, ready to contest every inch of Earth if necessary. Dr. Maria Santos stood at the last remaining defense station, coordinating the moon guns and preparing to transmit a desperate message to the stars, a record of humanity's resistance and the methods they had developed, in case anyone else ever faced the Calarian threat. As the battle raged, Empress Vexai received reports of mounting Calarian losses. What had been projected as a simple conquest had turned into a bloodbath. With 147 of her 300 ships destroyed, thousands of Calarian soldiers had perished against an enemy that should have been easily subdued. "How is this possible?" she demanded, her crystalline throne cracking under her grip. "They are primitive, outmatched in every way." "They fight differently, Your Majesty," her advisor replied. "They do not fear death as our other conquests have. They transform it into a weapon." For the first time in her long reign, Empress Vexai felt something akin to fear. If these humans could inflict such damage with their limited technology, what might they accomplish if given time to develop further? The battle for Earth reached its climax as the moon guns fired their final salvos, the massive projectiles tearing through Calarian ships with devastating effect. In response, the invaders unleashed a barrage that reduced the lunar installations to rubble. Earth was defeated, its defenses broken, its cities in flames. Yet, as the Calarian fleet moved to secure their conquest, they faced an uncomfortable truth. Nearly half their force had been destroyed by an enemy they had considered insignificant. As the dust settled, Captain Aria Tremont, who had survived the initial encounter at Kepler 442, led a small group of survivors to a secret base hidden in Jupiter's asteroid belt. 300 humans, all that remained of several outpost crews, gathered to continue the resistance. "Earth may have fallen," Aria told them, her voice steady despite their losses. "But humanity has not. We will fight on, not just for ourselves, but for every species that faces Calarian oppression." Lieutenant Amy Foster, formerly the Pioneer's communications officer, became Aria's trusted second-in-command, establishing a clandestine communications network among resistance cells scattered throughout the solar system. Engineer Rachel Stone, daughter of a Haven's Rest offender, developed the largest antenna array in the asteroid belt, capable of broadcasting messages across vast distances. From their hidden base, Aria's Task Force Jupiter launched guerrilla attacks against Calarian supply lines around Saturn, Mars, and Titan. They destroyed a Calarian research station, stealing vital intelligence that revealed weaknesses in the Empire's strategy. During one daring raid on Titan, Aria's team battled through methane storms with near-zero visibility to attack a Calarian support station. The harsh conditions made the operation nearly impossible, but also provided cover that allowed the small human force to succeed against overwhelming odds. While Aria led the resistance, Dr. Meera Patel and engineer Rachel Stone completed Project Transmission, a massive antenna array designed to broadcast humanity's resistance methods to the entire galaxy. Their message contained detailed instructions for converting mining equipment into weapons, along with footage of humanity's desperate but effective tactics. "This isn't just about us anymore," Patel explained as they prepared the transmission. "The Calarians have conquered hundreds of species. If we can share what we've learned, maybe others will rise up too." On the Calarian homeworld, Empress Vexai confronted an alarming report. Humans still fight. What should have been a routine pacification had become a persistent insurgency. Worse, intelligence suggested the humans were preparing to broadcast their resistance methods to other conquered worlds. "We must crush them completely," advised Counselor Sexnal. "Leave no survivor to spread their defiance." But Vexai hesitated. The Empire was vast, with hundreds of subjugated worlds. If the human spirit of resistance spread, they could face uprisings across countless systems, a war on too many fronts. "Perhaps," she mused, "we have underestimated these creatures." In the hidden base on Jupiter, Aria stood with Amy Foster and Rachel Stone, watching as reports streamed in from across the solar system. Small resistance cells continued to strike at Calarian operations, each attack carefully documented and prepared for transmission. "We can't win this war with weapons," Aria told her companions. "But we can win it with ideas. The Calarians rule through fear and technological superiority. We've shown both can be overcome." As Dr. Patel and Rachel Stone activated the transmission array, a pulse of information burst from their hidden base, carrying humanity's defiance to the stars. The message contained everything: mining conversion techniques, railgun specifications, container bomb designs, and footage of ordinary people standing against overwhelming odds. The broadcast reached far beyond the solar system, finding receivers on planets throughout Calarian space. On Zelthara, a mining world where the native Zeltharan population had been enslaved for generations. A young worker named Keppel watched the human transmission with tears in his eyes. "They fight," he whispered to his fellow miners. "With tools like ours, they fight." The final Calarian report reached Empress Vexai with devastating clarity. 200 worlds in open rebellion, 60% of the Imperial fleet tied down in suppression operations, and the probability of ultimate failure growing daily. The human resistance had sparked something unprecedented, a galaxy-wide uprising. After careful calculation, Vexai made the decision that would define her reign. "Withdraw from the Sol system," she ordered. "Designate human space as a quarantine zone. No Calarian vessel is to enter on pain of death." On the bridge of their Jupiter base, now transformed into a resistance academy, receiving students from many species, Arya, Amy, and Rachel watched the Calarian fleet depart. Earth lay in ruins, but humanity had survived and achieved something even greater. "We lost our homeworld," Arya said quietly, "but we may have liberated a galaxy." The communication map before them showed over 200 star systems, where the human transmission had taken root, sparking resistance movements among species, long thought broken by Calarian rule. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival had become a beacon of hope for countless others. On Zelthara, Keppel addressed a gathering of his people, the human transmission playing behind him. "For generations, we accepted our chains," he declared. "We believed resistance was futile, but these humans, with technology no greater than ours, showed us the truth. The Calarian Empire is not invincible. Together, we will rise." His words were echoed across hundreds of worlds as the spirit of resistance spread like wildfire. The Calarians, once confident in their absolute dominion, found themselves facing a crisis unprecedented in their history. In the years that followed, a new message spread throughout the galaxy, a warning that became legend. "If you encounter humans, run, for their will to freedom is a double-edged sword. It may awaken the entire galaxy." Earth would eventually be reclaimed, its cities rebuilt from ashes. But humanity's greatest legacy was not the reclamation of their homeworld, but the liberation they had inspired. From the desperate struggle of a single species came the freedom of countless others, united by the simple, powerful truth that even the mightiest empire could fall before the flame of collective will. On Io, where a rescue station for civilian evacuees had been established, children of Jupiter learned the history of the first battle against the Empire. Young saplings sprouted amidst the ruins, their green shoots symbolizing rebirth as resistance flourished. Arya stood on the observation deck, watching Earth in the distance, still scarred, but gradually healing. "We never wanted war," she wrote in her journal. March 14th, 2480, the day the Empire was forced to retreat. Our very breath is victory. The transmission that had saved humanity continued to spread, reaching ever more distant worlds. The Calarian Empire, once thought eternal, began to crumble as system after system claimed independence. When Arya looked at the communication map, she saw more than 200 worlds that had preserved the human transmission. The uprising had spread far beyond their expectations. "We thought we were saving humanity," she realized, "but we ended up saving billions of other lives as well." On Zelthara, Keppel's resistance had grown to include 500,000 Zeltharans. During an uprising ceremony, he declared, "Even the Harris, a dog-like species that knew nothing of war, barked in defiance when they saw the human videos. The universe now has a new variable. We will be silent no more." The final lesson echoed across the stars. The warning, "If you see humanity, run. Because our will to freedom is a double-edged sword. The entire galaxy may awaken." And in that awakening lay the seed of a new, freer galaxy, born from the ashes of humanity's darkest hour. As Arya gazed at the stars from Jupiter's orbit, She no longer saw them as places of danger, but as points of light in a universe where freedom was slowly winning against tyranny. Earth had fallen, but humanity had risen, and with them, countless others who had learned that resistance was never truly futile. "We are few," she told the newest arrivals at the Resistance Academy, "but our ideas are immortal. And in the end, ideas are more powerful than any empire." The story of humanity's first battle against the Calarian Empire became a rallying cry across the galaxy. No matter how overwhelming the odds, the flame of freedom could never be fully extinguished. And from that flame, a new galaxy would eventually emerge, one where no species would ever again accept the chains of subjugation without a fight.